YouTube, what is good, baby? We are back again with another beard tutorial. This is not a beard trim, but a faded beard tutorial. Very different than my last beard tutorial. I did not get any content on the haircut, so don't be expecting to see this on a future tutorial unless y'all might want to see this later on. Go ahead and drop that in this comment section if you do. Otherwise, there's no real content. This is all for bullshit reasons, so sorry to play y'all with that one. But first things first, I'm going to take down the beard to prep it. My client does want to keep his beard as full as possible, just knocking out the strays. So I'm going to take a 2-guard close and kind of just go with the grain. Next, I'm going to start taking down the beard, balding it out first straight line all the way to mid-ear. And this technique I actually did for the first time. This is kind of like, you know, like how somebody would set up a bald mid-taper on the sideburn, kind of balding out that middle part to keep the arches on that sideburn darker. I kind of just flipped it all the way around to do it on the beard, because I seen actually a barber on Instagram, Migs the Barber, do this like literally maybe like 30 minutes before my client walked in, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's go ahead and try it for this tutorial. So this was the first time of me trying it. I have since then been doing it on damn near all my beard fades clients, so I have a little bit more insight now, but just keep in mind this was the first time ever doing this technique, and I got it for a tutorial. So like you saw at the beginning, I did just make a little indent, keeping that side of the beard arch kind of darker and kind of making the middle as bald as possible. And I'm literally just gonna follow that kind of line indent all the way through, kind of taking it down the middle and keeping the sides as dark as possible. Going from closed halfway to open on my no guard, just like we would with a regular fade. After I get done with that, I am going to take my Slimline Pros again and kind of go over and kind of work out any little darker spots of the line that I do see. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take my 2-guard open, kind of go about halfway down the beard, really halfway down the jawline, I should say, actually, not the beard. And then we'll start working my way from open to close in that 2-guard, and then from there, I'm going to go open 1 guard and close that thing all the way up, and then go down to my 0-guard, close it all the way up. And that's going to be kind of like the first half of my fading. I'll work my way down on a beard. I just like doing it more that way, because if I go the other way and work my way more towards the chin area, sometimes I don't like how the beards look too bald on the sides. I like to keep it stubble. I don't like to make it seem like he doesn't have a beard at all. And then at the very end, I'm just going to take my Oster speed lines and kind of pick out a lot that I did in this beard tutorial. Was a lot of picking action. I did get a lot of darker lines at first. I was actually really worried. I thought I was going to mess up this whole video, but I kind of worked it out and just really stayed at it and was determined to pick out any darker spots that I did see with different guards and opening and closing the lever, and really just working out those lines. Now, where I did start that 2-guard at on the beard line, that is kind of where I'm going to make the most condensed part of the fade. I'm going to try and make everything as short as possible within that little frame, because afterwards I'm going to go ahead and take my 3-guard, open it all the way up, and take down the rest of the hairs leading into the jawline, and also flicking out when I'm going into that chin area to kind of create a natural fade. He does want to keep the chin area as long as possible, and then from there I'm just going to fade down on the beard, or well, fade going up the jaw, I guess you could say. You can kind of see what I'm doing on the video. Fade going back towards that ear, and going from open halfway to close, and then I'm going to go ahead and take my 2-guard and do the same thing. Actually, I did not capture that on camera, never mind, but I did do a 2-guard to kind of take out any darker spots. Taking my Slimline Pros after, just working behind that jawline arch, making it as straight as possible, kind of taking it back a little bit by little bit. Now I'm going to start underneath the neck. I do start the neck lineup like I would the front hairline lineup, and I start from the middle point of the jaw, working my way back on the jawline. I'm just going to simply take it back as far as possible, and then I also kind of push up that line next or at the very back part of the jaw. That's just because sometimes the jaw pushes that line down a little bit, where you get a side view of it You can see that's nice and straight right there. Now moving on to the mustache. When I'm doing mustaches and especially that first part of the lineup, I do like to get that corner of the mouth hairs kind of taken down as short as possible. So I'll comb everything kind of in and use that side of that right side to kind of curve with the hairs to cut off anything that's going over inside the mouth. When your clients do have longer beards, they do have a lot of trouble when they're eating food, and that hair kind of gets caught up and they'll start eating their beard almost. Trust me, I've had the same problems when I grew up my beard. Next, I'm going to start on that lineup. Now, my client did line himself up in between haircuts. He kind of did push down his line. So when you see me going over this, it's not going to be right on that darker part of the line. You're going to kind of see me raise it up with the stubble hairs. And also when I finish off the haircut, when I do add the enhancement, the hair fibers, you're going to see maybe like a little bit of a lighter shade towards the top. That's just because he asked me. He said, hey, look, dude, I kind of messed up my beard. Can you kind of fix it up for me? Sometimes clients do this. I would say, actually, I do tell most of my clients, like, if you just cannot touch your beard until you come back in, that would be best. Sometimes clients don't have the steadiest of hands. They do push down their beard. Kind of makes it a little bit frustrating, but you just gotta work with your clients. It's not like I'm mad at dude. My dude David's he's been coming to me for about like 3-4 years now, so I'm used to it. I know how he likes his beard and everything like that. And I get them sharp every single time. Now just taking down all the little hairs underneath the neck as well. This is a sensitive area, so for some people you might want to take the trimmers lighter on this area. And you know, the neck is very sensitive for some clients. I know for myself, I get a very sensitive neck to any clippers. I actually don't want to have any electric shaver on my neck, so always make sure that you ask your client, is it okay to use an electric shaver? Do you bump up? Do you get irritation from it at all? Because it is going to be embarrassing if you do use that electric shaver and actually have your client walking out of the chair with razor burn or a very red irritated neck. This part of the lineup on the inside of the lip is just something that my client does. He likes a boxier look. I don't try to get this too sharp. He just wants it cleaned out. He doesn't really like a straight razor in there at all. So you're just gonna see me going over the trimmers and then finishing it off with the shavers. When I'm going with the trimmers, you're gonna see me using a lot of the edges. I don't want to lay the full trimmer down flat on his chin area, because that is going to take down the hair shorter, just as if you were doing a design or working in a smaller area. There you can see the finished part before the straight razor line on that left side of the beard. Now moving on to the right side. I'm just going to speed this up right now because it's literally just repeating the same steps. Like I said before, this was the first time I ever done this on a client. I actually seen it on Instagram probably about 30 minutes before my client actually sat down in my chair from Migs the barber. Shout out Migs on Instagram. And I kind of just had to, oh well, let's try it. And I do have a lot of those moments where I'm like, you know what, that looks cool, let's fucking try it right now. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's been working a lot lately because I know what I'm doing more than I did when I first started out. So I wouldn't recommend having a fuck it moment when you first start out, unless you're totally confident in your abilities and knowing how to fade at a high level. Like I said before, I have been doing this on all my beard fades, so I do have a little bit more insight. When I do finish off that line, I want to keep that little arch where I took the bald as dark as possible, but I do take it all the way down with an open no guard clipper. That still gives me that nice sharp line look, and still keeps the stubble there, but still keeps it super light to where still gives the beard that faded in look. I work my way from the outside to the middle on that top line of the mustache. It is hard to work around that nose area, like what my client just did right there. I simply just tell my clients pull down their nose so I can kind of reach in with that trimmer and take down the hair. I don't tell them to bring down the mustache or pull it down when I'm doing that side part, only when I'm doing the middle part, and that really helps me get the hairs closest to the nostril. Now I'm gonna go ahead and apply my shaving gel. I don't apply a hot towel to my client. He doesn't really like hot towels. I always ask him every single time. He says, no, I'm good. So I just apply shaving gel. This is the exotic shaving gel. It does have a mintier smell to it. It's all organic. So on some skin types, I have experienced some clients getting a little bit irritation from it, just because the aroma from it is very minty fresh and the aloe is very strong. But my client doesn't seem to have a problem with it. I make sure I rub it in real well into his skin just to make sure it softens up all the hair. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take my Motive Pro straight razor and start from that top arch and work my way down, pulling the skin in the opposite direction. You are gonna see me go over this line quite, like maybe about 2 or 3 times. I shouldn't say quite a few times, but about 2 or 3 times. And now I'm just working on that nose area. Like I said, even when I'm working with a straight razor, I always tell my clients to pull it down in the opposite direction. So if I'm working on that right side of the nose, I'll tell him to pull his top lip down and to the left to kind of give it that nice stretch to where I can get a good angle on it. And then just always be aware of how you're angling the blade on that nose area. You're gonna see a nice up and close view of me attacking that line. You can still kind of see I did raise up that line with the stubble just barely. I'm just gonna keep that consistent all the way throughout the whole video. And then of course I gotta hit behind that jaw line as well to make sure that line is super crisp. This area is a little bit tougher, the hair is a little bit thicker, so you wanna make sure you're pulling the skin pretty tight and having a good angle. Otherwise you will experience the hair tugging a little bit. Now moving on to applying the enhancement, the hair fibers, the enhanced hair fibers by Chuca Torres. Shout out to Chuca on that one. I'm gonna go ahead and take my enhanced card, just place it on that beard line where I want to have the hair fibers lay on his beard, and just start with a nice light spray. I'm just gonna fill that nice little darker part towards the chin area up, and also kind of filling up that lighter spot where I did take up that line. Afterwards, I always gotta finish it off and go over with my trimmers. I go over with my Anda Slimline Pros, just to kind of get those hair fibers that did leak off all aligned, and kind of just make it a little bit more crisper, followed by my straight razor right after. Now it's just rinse and repeat the same thing on the other side. Go ahead and apply your exotic shave gel. Start from that top arch area and work your way all the way down, wiping off any excess gel that does kind of clump up on the line to kind of gets in your way a little bit afterwards, and go over it a couple more times. Now moving on to that nose. Now you can kind of see how I tell my client to pull down that nose area so the blade has a nice clean path to work with. I'm not going to be worried about cutting any part of his nose. He's pulling his skin as tight as possible while I'm still pulling that part above the cheek area to kind of ensure that there's no loose skin that I can catch by the razor. Wipe off any excess gel, like I said before adding hair fibers onto my client. You can still see that little bit of a stubble where I did raise up that line again. I did keep in mind when I went through with the razor to make sure not to push it down at all. I'm just gonna go ahead lightly go over that line with my trimmers again. And then finally, to kind of bring everything back into place, finish it off with the straight razor. Now when I am doing this, I'm not trying to create a line anymore. I'm really just going in lightly and really just having the blade stop right where that hairline is at. I'm not trying to create a new hairline or push anything down. So I'm really, hand-eye coordination comes to key right here to make sure you don't push anything down. Any spots that you do see of that line that kind of bump up unnaturally, that kind of affect that arch line, you want to go ahead and take that down little bit by little bit, and then of course get behind that jaw line. This is like a harder part for me, or harder area, just because I am right-handed. That ear kind of gets in the way, so I gotta take a couple different angles on that. I'm gonna go ahead and apply my spritz and finish off that front hairline as well. I didn't go over anything basically at all on the haircut. I did bar up the haircut though, by the way. But this was strictly a beard tutorial, so I really wanted to focus on that beard lineup. This is just me going through cleaning up anything else that I do see. I was actually, like I said before, this was the first time I tried this technique at all, and after I finished adding the hair fibers and kind of lining everything up, I just took a step back. I was like, damn dog, this shit fresh as shit. You know, like sometimes when you're in the zone of working on a cut, you don't really get to appreciate the full cut until it comes full circle at the very end, and then you can really appreciate your work that you did. You know, when I'm working, I'm kind of just in a flow. I'm very focused on one thing at a time, very honed in on one area, and I'm always surprised at the very end of a cut. I like to appreciate the overall look of it. Now, after you finish a piece of work like this, you do want to go over any little areas that you do see that are out of line, that maybe you kind of just buzzed over a little bit. I know somewhere in here when I was going through the whole haircut, kind of looking at it, kind of getting the best angles to shoot an end promo video for this, I did see like a little bump on that right side, not that side, the other side. Where's that thing at? It's coming up right here, but I did see like a little bump in that line. You're gonna see it right there, kind of next, close to that the mouth area. There you go. I'll go ahead and take my straight razor, and I just went ahead and just go ahead and straighten that out before I finished the cut. It's looking a lot better now. The line is a lot more smoother leading up to that arch, and that is how you perform a faded beard. Like I said, it was my first time trying this technique out. I really did like how this turned out, as I do most of my haircuts. I know I say that a lot, but this one really did surprise me. Like I said, it was actually the first time I ever done this on a client before, so I wasn't too sure at how this was going to turn out at all. I was pleasantly surprised. Hopefully some of you guys will actually try this technique out. I think once you get down kind of like that nice little arch area and know how to kind of scoop out and pick out with the beginning, it is very easy to set up the rest of the beard. Appreciate y'all for always showing support and love, and I'll see you guys very soon.